I've, over the last 8 years, have run a number of events bringing together Christian and Muslim teenagers, which is great, and we've had a good time here in Birmingham, but are very concerned about taking that story further afield, helping other people to do that. And over the years, a number of people have said to me, we want to do this, but have found it really hard to get going. They found that people are wary, uncertain, and often those people, after a few months of trying, have given up or their job's changed and it's never quite come to fruition. So we're really concerned to say, how do we help those people who are beginning to think, wouldn't this be good, but don't really know where to start? To say, here's the kind of the tools for you to go away so you can run an event. This phrase that someone gave to me a while ago, Jesus loitered in ambiguous situations. What did he mean by that? Well, in Matthew chapter 9, we read about Jesus hanging around, having a meal with people who the religious leaders, his own people, looked on and said, why are you meeting with them? Why should Christians or Muslims get involved? And there are different answers from different communities. So we've tried to look at, well, here's, from the Christian perspective, here's some of the reasons, and we can turn to the example of Jesus to say why we should get involved. We looked at, for Muslims, what are some of the reasons why you should get involved? We also explored with the people here, what are some of the practical objections? And then to give some solutions to those. There's some very practical ideas. Here's the kind of the way you can actually get young people together. And then also to say, here's 1 or 2 activities that you can do, 1 or 2 ways that you can actually go about making this happen.
We will acknowledge both the similarities and differences between our faiths. It seems like a fairly obvious one, but I think it's how we deal with the differences and make ourselves aware of the commonalities, especially where the Abrahamic faiths are concerned.
There are some Christians who they just don't know how to talk about their faith to someone of another faith. And I meet that too with Muslims. And so, because they're not quite sure how to do it, they often start by telling you why you're wrong or trying to prove that they're the winners or something. And so actually that doesn't always help. It doesn't always lead to a constructive kind of discussion or friendship. But also those who find themselves in schools where every RE lesson's an interfaith dialogue meeting. Who's equipping them to say, here's how to have those discussions, here's how to create that? And obviously with all the sad things that have happened, with the kind of rise of extremism in all sorts of different areas, how are we challenging that and countering that and saying, actually, being a member of a faith does not lead to problems necessarily. Actually, it often leads to the solution. And here's one way of showing that it leads to the solution.
So what do you all think prevents people getting together, Christians and Muslims specifically?
Sometimes it's just practical reasons that people aren't free, aren't able to. But I think there needs a lot of information for people to feel comfortable and overcome that aspect of fear to get involved.
Part of my job would be to first sort of educate the young people I'm working with so they can understand the need in order to meet people of other faiths.
Ultimately, I would say, do good youth work. And I've got this little phrase I use, that we should do good youth work with Muslims and Christians together, not a formal dialogue meeting with teenagers present. Because it's not rocket science. We're not inventing new youth work activities. We're just doing them in a way that allows Christians and Muslims to meet. So I'm very realistic that actually for some, when you say we're going mountain biking, do you want to come? And you will be meeting others when you're there, and it will have this. We're very upfront about what we do. We never hide it. But I know that they'll say, mountain biking? Great! But what I always find is they do the mountain biking, then they chat to the others because we have structured discussion, and then they get excited by it. And at the end of the day, they're saying, when's the next one? What activities are you going to have? Ones that, yes, good youth work activities, but ones that are safe. So fun kind of warm-up things, but not too much physical contact, or none at all, really.
I think the other thing that's really important in terms of sensitivity, when we talk about practical solutions, this idea of modelling good practice. So especially where we're looking at kind of training to do, where there's a mixed group of Christians and Muslims, it's always useful to have trainers that are Christian and that are Muslim.
We often have a little quiz thing, go and ask someone, what do you do on a Saturday, what's your favourite film, those kind of questions, just to get the conversation started. And then moving into activities and kind of perhaps deeper conversations afterwards.
Do you read a magazine? If so, which one? I read trashy magazines. Those ones where they have about all the latest celebrity stories. Those are the ones I read.
whose fault is the credit crunch and what should be done to them.
Was it ever difficult being a teenager? It was actually. You wouldn't think to look at me today being mild-mannered, but now I was quite a rebellious teenager.
Who would make the best Prime Minister in Britain and why? Well, recently Joanna Lumley has made mincemeat of the politicians, so I think she'd make a pretty good Prime Minister.
I hope for two things, I think. One is that they'll be inspired to actually go and do this and will think, yes, I can make that happen. But also they'll have the tools to go and do that with. So for someone who've come along thinking, not quite sure, I was sent, or I think this is, will go away going, yes, that matters, yes, I've caught the vision. And for others who say, well, I want to do it, are going away going, now I see, now I know what to do, and now I know where to get more help. So that ultimately what we see is groups popping up in various parts of the country where Christians and Muslim teenagers are getting together.
The activity that Andrew showed us, I'll be able to use that, and some of the resources on the website which he directed us towards, I'm hoping I'll use that as well.
The day was really good, and I really got some good clear things that I could actually take back to my context and use and put into practice quite easily.
I'll be able to email people and share ideas with them as time goes on and get them to kind of develop activities as we kind of put them into practice and then develop them. So we'll be able to it'll be an ongoing process.
I think some of the guidelines for the dialogue would be really good to bring back and create that safe space for young people. And also I think just realising quite how it's not as complex as it seems, and that fear that's kind of built up in people of doing these sorts of things isn't really there at all.
Why does it matter? Because actually first, as a Christian, I think it's what God wants us to do. You know, He wants us to be peacemakers. He wants us to love our neighbours. I actually think it's what God wants us to do. I think it's very good for our society. When I look at Birmingham, when I look at other cities, I have to think, what kind of society do I want my children, my grandchildren to live in? Do I want it a society where different faith communities stare at each other, ignore each other, and are antagonistic, or one where communities can be confident who they are, but are able to meet, engage, build friendships? And that's the kind of vision of society that I have.